Welcome to the Practice You podcast. My name is Elena Brower. Together, we'll explore and enjoy content and conversations around mastering transitions in our relations, our wellness, our careers, our families, and especially in our missions and visions. You are invited to learn and love and listen with me. Welcome to Practice You. Welcome back to the podcast. I have with me today longtime friend, dear teacher, colleague, guide. She is the founder of the Center of the Cyclone, which is an immersive meditation experience. She is a fellow sober sister. She's also the co-founder of Club Soda, which is an event series that explores sobriety. She's been featured in Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Elle. Guess who it is yet? No, you can't. She has been leading meditations at the MoMA, at Sundance. She's partnered with all the brands. She's a total badass. She has such a story, and I love her very much. Her name is Biet Simkin. Welcome.
Thank you. I love you too.
Your book is called Don't Just Sit There.
Yep.
And the subtitle is 44 Insights to Get Your Meditation Practice Off the Cushion and Into the Real World. We can never hear enough about this, of course. But before we talk about this book, there are a few things that need to get addressed. One is the fact that we share a history in fourth way teachings. This is not something that is like in my bio.
Right.
Because it's something that hit me in my 30s when I was an absolute mess. And I found a fourth way teacher who came to me actually through Dr. Alejandro Junger, of all people.
Wow.
And this teacher is no longer in the States, but it changed my path. Fourth way is what you and I share. And so we've always had kind of a kindred sisterhood around that. Let's talk first about what the fourth way is. Then I would like to go into your history and your personal family, everything. And then we'll talk about the book. Is that cool?
Yeah, that sounds great.
So fourth way teachings, I want you to go into how do you define that for somebody if they're asking, what does it mean, the fourth way? What does that mean?
I just briefly want to speak about my relationship to fourth way too, and how it came into my life, which is that my father was an awakened teacher and he was a fourth way master. And he wasn't someone who was part of any groups. He did it all by himself. And he was just this kind of werewolf of mysticism. And I always growing up thought I was going to be like him one day. And so it was really to my surprise that actually, I'm just not like that. I don't sit alone in rooms for 17 days, you know what I mean? And unearth stuff. I'm more of a group-centered person, and I function best inside of packs. So while he was a werewolf, I'm more like a coyote, I guess. So anyway, I studied with him my whole life, fourth way work. And then when he passed away, I actually decided to make it my life's mission to make that my practice, and devoted my life to.
How old were you when he died?
I was 28, of course.
Saturn.
Yeah, Saturn returned in that one. And so, and I got sober at 29. So, and I'm 40 now. So this month I'm celebrating 11 years of sobriety.
I'm clapping. My arms are in the air. My heart is open. Oh, beautiful.
But if anyone asked me what the hell fourth way was, I would say fourth way is a secret form of spirituality. It's spirituality that's happening while you're, riding in your Porsche, or while you're, premiering your film at Sundance Film Festival. It's fourth way work is not meant to be done with a turban or a bindi. You don't have to wear white. You don't have to move to an ashram. You can do it while you perform. You could be a general in an army, or you could be a politician, because it really is supposed to be this way of dividing your attention between your soul and the real purpose of life, and the play of life. And it's not turning away from the play of life, but actually remembering that you're not its bitch, you know?
Dude, everything that you just said, I'm so happy that we're recording this conversation, because everything that you just said is exactly what my brain has been missing in terms of explaining it to other people, that it's that you're hiding in plain sight and you're practicing these very precise and often highly uncomfortable observational practices, and a deep level of sincerity with yourself
Mm.
that is exactly what, as you said, it's secret, but you're still doing all the things that you do, but you're practicing in the same moments.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. I pulled out all my fourth way books, baby. And as we go through what we talk about, I'm going to just read from them, and then I'm going to start reading from yours too.
Awesome.
I am now in Views from the Real World, page 92. Man has no energy. And by the way, this means woman or man when I say man.
Yeah, of course.
Man has no energy to fulfill voluntary aims because all of his strength, acquired at night during his passive state, is used up in negative manifestations. These are his automatic manifestations, the opposite of his positive willed manifestations.
Mm.
So I like this reminder because your entire book is basically based on this truth that we are forgetting constantly to stop letting all of this beautiful energy, this healing energy that we amass while we sleep and rest and practice. We are wasting it on so many different things, not just thoughts, but also actions, and also addictions, and also even just certain conversations are a big waste of that energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Your 44 insights to get your practice off the cushion and into the real world is basically a consolidation of how to do this.
Yeah.
Talk to us about why you picked 44.
Well, there's actually, according to Fourth Way, there's 48 laws that oppress us on a daily basis. So if we're like, wake up on a normal day, we don't feel crappy, we don't feel amazing, we're just kind of in the middle, that means we're underneath 48 laws that are preventing us from our enlightenment, according to Fourth Way. And I thought that 4 of them were a bit too woo-woo and like a little bit too esoteric for like the person who was beginning their meditation journey. So I just took them out. And then I threw in some that I had, organized through my own verifications over the studies that I've done over the last 40 years. And I came up with 44 because in Fourth Way work, 44, the number 44 is heralded as very important. And it's something that I've used as a vehicle of self-remembering for a long time. So whenever I see the number 44, I use it as a token of, either to just remember myself in that moment or to see, wow, you see you're kind of moving in the right direction, sort of like that hot cold game that you play when you're a kid.
Got it. The first law is the law of divided attention.
Yes.
In Self-Remembering, which is a great book by...
Robert Burton, I think, wrote that one.
No, it's Self-Remembering I have in front of me by Robert R. Burton, but I also have this one, which is called Self-Remembering the Path to Non-Judgmental Love by Red Hawk. It's a good one.
Nice.
It's a good one. His, and I'm on page 105 in that book, Wide Vision. This split attention can include what is called field attention. Super cool. I want to talk about your law, number 1, the law of divided attention. How can somebody who is just listening to us right now, my listener, has maybe never meditated or has struggled with meditation or has a pretty good practice, but could use a little more clarity in placing their practice into this daily moment secretly just for themselves? What does the law of divided attention have to do with it?
The thing is that people think that presence is being in a moment completely. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about presence. So you'll meet a lot of, I don't know, you roll in the yoga community with me sometimes, right? So like you meet these people who are like really googly eyed and what they're doing is like gazing at you in this really weird way. And they're doing it in an effort to show you how present they are. Do you know what I'm talking about, that person?
I do. I almost want to say no, and then there's another little sinister part of me that wants to make a joke about the whole thing. But yes, I do know about that, and I feel compassion for those folks because they are trying so hard to make sure that I know how present they are, as you said, and you're standing here with me. We're good. You know what
Yes,
I mean?
yes, no, totally. I'm not even passing judgment on anyone. I am just as broken and ugly and, human as that person. So this isn't like some kind of a race, but I'm just saying that a lot of people mistake presence for that. And really, in fourth way work, what they're doing is actually called fixated attention or fascinated attention, which is like a queen energy,
Okay.
which means they're fixated on something in the three-dimensional plane, which in that case where they're meeting me at a party would be me. But what they don't understand is that all their energy is now on me. And so they have no more access to their energy. Their energy is gone from them. So divided attention says if you do not know how to have at least 50% of your attention, or 51, on your soul, on your inner world, you're always going to get pulled out into what's happening in three-dimensional space. 3 weeks ago, my house in Santa Monica burnt down. And a normal person is like, that's it. That's what's going on. You know what I mean? Their house is burning down. When you have divided attention, like you have attention on your soul, to me, it's like, okay, that's what's happening in 3D, but I'm living 51% of my life in 5D. So what's really happening? I'm more interested in that. And I think that's really relevant to what happens in my life and why people are like, why is she so successful or whatever? It's kind of like, because I don't give a fuck, because I'm not out here being like, I'm going to make it work. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I'm inside my soul and I'm asking the universe, or what I call God, and I'm not religious, like, what do you want? And sometimes God or the universe is like, I'm seeing a burnt down house. How do you feel about that, Biet? And I'm just like, I feel great about it because it's what you selected, so it must be right.
Right. The second law, the law of identification, this is one that was, no, that's the third law, excuse me. The second law is the law of aim.
Such a good one.
Yeah. I just want to take us through the first few and then we'll sort of toggle around.
Cool.
I owe my listener also your personal story if that is something that we get to or that would tickle you to share.
Of course.
The law of aim, you write, when you journey into your inner world to meditate and awaken conscious, you connect to your soul. You usher in bliss, attitude, and intention, which is what you call the state of love. Talk to me about how this law sits on us and how we are to come get in front of it or out from under it.
Yeah, aim is again kind of back to what we were just speaking about, which is like if I'm a business person, which I am, whatever the hell that means, that just means like I care about putting pieces together and having transactions occur, like in the three-dimensional field.
Right.
A lot of people can get really lost in that. They get so ambitious that they become like they become billionaires, let's say, but they're like, they've totally lost a sense of connection with the bliss of life. And so to me, aim is really remembering that like my primary aim is really just to connect to these higher states. And everything else it's not secondary necessarily. It's just, that's not where it's born. Like I'm interested in a life that has a lot of abundance in it and a lot of money in it and a lot of luxury and fame. I'm into all of it. I just don't feel like the way those things are created, for me, the way that I've created those things is through entering into my primary aim, which is a higher state where I'm connected to a state of love, where I'm in bliss. And to me, like everything that comes out of that state, I'm into. But anything I have to like claw my way to, like by emailing people and like asking for things and like really getting into the nitty gritty of the three-dimensional world and being like, why didn't they email me back? You know what I mean? It's kind of like,
Yeah.
I just don't want to play that game. And listen, I send fuck tons of emails. Like, I'm not saying that I'm not in the game. I'm just not in the game.
I get that.
Like I deploy my, what do you call it? Like my personality self to send emails. But when the emails get responded to or not, it's kind of like, cool, I'm already back dealing with bliss.
Right.
So like the emails either get responded to or not, and I'm just like over here in bliss.
It's a level of fluidity.
Yeah.
The third law, the law of intention. I mean, the law of identification. This one is kind of the first thing that really created a new way forward for me when I was in my 30s.
I love that.
To learn, I swear, to learn that I was identified with these various aspects of who I was and how I was and how my life was going to look and feel. And to disidentify was very uncomfortable, to say the least. I would go and sit with my teacher every time, and basically he would just stare me down for, the better part of the first 15 minutes and not speak at all. And I would invariably just weep, like buckle and crumble. And what I realized in those moments is
Sounds
that
like what I do to my students today. I love it.
I love it. But when those moments were happening and I look back on those times and the crawling out of my skin that I would have done, there's actually a chapter in the Overstory, I'm sure you've read, by Richard Powers.
Yeah.
Where Mimi, who ended up changing her name and becoming a psychotherapist, she does that to her client. She basically just sits with them for 1 hour, stares them down, and the entire world is revealed to both client and Mimi in that period of time. But what I'm getting at is in those moments where when my identification with all the things that I thought had meaning, thought had value,
Yeah.
dropped away.
Yeah.
And the discomfort came in the form of the tears. Talk to us about this.
Well, I can speak to two, like, in terms of like the past, I was identified with being a heroin addict. I was identified with being rock and roll. And to me, rock and roll meant self-destructive, and it meant being confused. It meant being lost. It meant a lot of darkness. I remember when I got sober, I had to really let go of a lot of identification that I had with people like Charles Bukowski and Andy Warhol and Basquiat. Like to me, it was like, I just thought those people were so heroic. And one day it was like a question mark occurred and was like, what if this isn't, like, it's not that it's not heroic. Like, I'm glad they infused your life. And I love Bukowski and Basquiat and Warhol. It's just that, like, what if you don't need to take all of their characteristics to become your true self in essence? And I had to let go of a lot of preconceived notions about the word cool. I think that I thought a lot of those things were cool. And because of that, I wasn't able to just be me, and all the ways in which I'm not cool, which is that I'm kind of nice and I'm friendly and I like people, which is like super uncool. Like my whole life, I was like, God, I wish I could be more like misanthropic and like sit around alone, smoking Chesterfields and feeling angry all the time. I'm just like, not who I fucking am, So,
Although it was who we were for 5 minutes anyway.
I tried for like 9 years. I was in false personality, which is, I think, another chapter. But now, like, now as the woman that I am today, I'm dealing with much more like delicate and refined levels of identification. Like, for instance, like identification with my beauty. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I feel like being a beautiful woman, I don't know whether you have this experience, but for me, it ends up being 50% I'm a beautiful woman, and then 50% a lot of beat up of that I'm not beautiful enough, or that I should be more beautiful, or that I'm ugly and I'm disgusting.
Give it 10 years, you'll be fine.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm working my ass off to be free from that. So anyway, what I've noticed is like recently to let go of the identification of beauty and ugly. And to realize that those exist inside of this dualistic plane, and they don't exist inside of the bliss plane. Again, the mind plane versus the soul plane.
Right.
And then when I just yesterday, I was just sitting there and just being like, I am a disgusting, dirty, ugly, dying machine. And I'm also this gorgeous, succulent, sexual, beautiful bombshell. And to feel both of those simultaneously, it was like something got free inside of me, where I was able to truly embrace and feel all of my beauty, and beauty and ugliness. Like all of a sudden, I was like, oh, this is a mind fuck game. Like, this is me being identified with one thing or the other and not free.
And then on page 29, you teach us about the verification point to get sort of out from under or actually live above this law.
Yes.
You say, notice moments when one of your identities is threatened. See how attached you are to things going your way. Consider that this may be identification at work and take a moment to observe ways you identify.
Mm.
You may identify as a winner. So if you lose, your very identity is threatened. If you identify as right, when you're wrong, you become angry. Ask to recognize these moments in meditation, on and off your cushion, and split your attention when they arise. You say, such good instruction, my girl.
I mean, it worked for me.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I know we're still at the beginning of the book, but I think that these understandings are crucial to develop a mutual understanding with my listener. The fourth law is the law of shocks.
Mm.
And this is kind of where we are responsible for creating these conscious shocks and loosen up, listener, on your definition of the word shock, because it's not the scary, wow, wow. It's some kind of message for yourself that can be in utter silence. It could be one fingertip on your sternum where you are giving yourself a moment of complete opposite pause, whatever the shock happens to be, so that you can pivot and change your state. Teach us, Biet, about what this means to you and how you create conscious shocks.
The thing about shocks is that they're going to come regardless of whether you create them or not. Whether or not your soul will eat those shocks is completely up to whether you're doing the work or not.
Mm.
And so in terms of food, shocks are food. They're food. To me, it's like the speed at which I can comprehend God's message for me or the universe's message for me is much slower if I'm not being hit with shocks. So again, my house burned down 3 weeks ago. And my first thought was like, okay, what are you saying? That's it. I just wanted to know what the message was. Right. And it was also, I know we're going to talk about my story later, but I had a daughter 14 years ago who died of sudden infant death syndrome. And the anniversary of her death was January 2nd. And that's the day that my house burned down.
Right.
And so I just thought that's not coincidental, it just can't be, And weirdly, the fire wove around all my scriptures. Like I have a plastic box filled with all my fourth way writing in it that I've been keeping over the last, 10 years since I got sober. And it's all handwritten and it just would have been gone. But everything in that area of the house burnt to a crisp, and somehow this plastic box remained untouched. Super surreal. And all my fourth way books untouched. All the other books gone. The sacred texts that I had in that house survived.
Wow.
And so
from your dad,
from my father, yeah, like all the Maurice Nicoll and
that was my next question. Who's he got in there?
Yeah, it's me. It's me. Nicoll is my favorite, I think, and Burton is there too. But he's my number one. I also really love Rodney Collin. But and I know that's controversial, but I just love him.
No, it's a little controversial, but I don't care because the writing is good.
It's did you jump off of a church in Mexico to kill yourself? Whatever. Anyway, the point is that I was looking for the shot, and of course I learned right away. It was Biet, you have veered off your path. This is what needs to be recalibrated. And I just recalibrated. I listened and I recalibrated. Now, there was a time in my life when shocks were coming at me one after the other, and I was just not listening. I had 2 fuck you symbols up in the air, something from an 80s movie with John Cusack. And I was like, no fucking way. I'm not doing
I had that yesterday.
What?
I had the 2 fuck you symbols in the air yesterday, dude.
Nice.
I had this hour where I completely lost the plot. It's nice to hear you describe it like this. I was there.
Nice. Yeah, we always have to revisit those states, don't we? It's such a beautiful part of being human. But yeah, I just didn't want to listen, and the shocks kept coming, and they were getting more and more and more intense, right? And finally, my dad died, and that was the final stroke before I like I was about to become like a high-end prostitute or something. But then finally, like the voice was like, it's your game over. Like you lost, like just give up, please, like put the flag up. So as a sober woman, I had to go into this world of like, life, which I'm not a fan of really. And then I was like, what do we do? What do we do? And so we learned the fourth way work and I surrendered to it. And one of them is conscious shocks, creating conscious shocks. So what is conscious shocks? Conscious shocks is Bikram yoga. Like who wants to do an hour and a half of hot yoga in like a room while gazing at their own reflection? Nobody, it's amazing. Like go do that. Or Kundalini yoga, or weird breath work that makes you feel like you're dying, or maybe taking a pilgrimage into the woods. Or it could be something as simple as like, today I'm on my way to Krispy Kreme and I'm going to make a left instead of a right on my way to get there. It could be that small. Or it could be like, I'm brushing my teeth, I'm going to brush my teeth with my left hand instead of my right. So creating these conscious shocks makes you reset. And again, just remember, like, you're alive. Like, I don't know, Kobe Bryant went down in like a helicopter 3 days ago or whatever. And it's like, you don't know if that's going to be you, tomorrow or 5 minutes from now.
I just opened up Self-Remembering, Robert O. Burton. Page 139 was the one that revealed itself. And it says, self-remembering outlives galaxies and stars. Each time we suffer a shock, we produce a trace of this imperishable divine substance.
Wow, good page to turn to.
Baby, I didn't turn to it. I mean, I opened the book. It starred and like, a big bracket around it from, Lord knows, probably 15 years ago when I was in it. I mean, I've been in it since, but when I first was in it and was like, oh my God, this is it.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
I do too.
I have so much respect for how you put it together. I want to go on to 5 and 6 because I feel like that's a good place to sort of halt with my listener. 5 is actually the law of 3. And I can't wait to hear you explain this because I don't think it was ever sufficiently explained to me, even though I understand it philosophically. I would love to hear your explanation of the law of 3.
I mean, I think we kind of covered it a minute ago when I was talking about beauty. The law of 3 is a perspective that isn't available to humans. So it's like we only have access to 2 perspectives, both of which are going to kill us. And those 2 perspectives are going to be yes, no, like, dislike, good, bad. And the third perspective is one that is neither or both. It is living in a state of contradiction. And the law of 3 says we need a third force to enter into our lives to be able to do anything, right? So on like a super like rudimentary level, it would be like if your house is a mess, right? Which I know yours is not, but do you know what I mean? Like if your house is messy, right? Like you have some crap around, whatever, and then your mother-in-law calls and is like, I'm coming over. And then all of a sudden you're running around the house like cleaning, right? So that's like a third force in a 3-dimensional plane. But I think that on a higher level, like we're just looking at like, again, I'm tired of like dating the wrong guy, dating the right guy, dating the wrong guy, dating the right guy. It's sort of like the little, what is that book? The Goldilocks and the 3 bears, right? So the third force, the law of 3 is that third bowl of porridge. It's like, I don't know why, but this, and the porridge doesn't exist in the third dimension. That's why most people live a life of complete misery because they're either eating a small bowl or a big bowl or a small bed or a big bed. And they're just in therapy all the time being like my problems, it's kind of like, so to live in the third law is to say like, no, like I'm not going to be a bitch to this dualistic plane. Like I am going to find what the universe's perspective of this is. And again, yesterday when I had that moment where I was just like, I'm ugly, I'm hideous, and I'm beautiful. Like when I really could see them both at the same time, I was like, oh, fuck, that feels so good. Like so relaxing, like as opposed to like, but I could fix the cellulite. And it's like, I don't have time for this shit anymore.
Right. And also, like I said, within the next 10 years, you're going to realize that it's magical that you even made it this far. And you're just beautiful. Like there isn't any ugly, there's just utter magnificence, even on the days when you're sick with the flu. Like
Mm.
that's just who you are. The verification point for the law of three is a practice of neutrality with regards to reality, which I really appreciate. It's something that I also learned in Kundalini Yoga from some great teachers. You suggest that when one were to receive bad news, you greet it with the same
Mm.
sort of attitude as you would with great news. A little bit of wonder, a little bit of appreciation, like, oh, my fucking house burned down. Holy shit.
Totally.
You know, what you ask in the book, what opportunity is available that I can't see yet?
Mm.
I'm trying to teach this to my kid who's 13. It didn't go super well last night, but it got better this morning. It's like, not everything's going to go well.
Mm. That's so true.
You're not seeing it all yet. You can't possibly be seeing it all yet. I'm not seeing it all yet.
Right. No.
The law of self-remembering is the sixth law.
Yep.
And this, I think, it's important to explain this to my listener because we've mentioned it now many, many times. What does it mean to remember myself? In my understanding, it just means, whoa, catch yourself when you're about to scream at your kid. Catch
Mm.
yourself when you're making that wild face. Catch yourself when you're getting super worked up over something that just does not call for that level of intensity.
Mm-hmm.
Explain this to my listeners so that we can be on the same page with you. What is self-remembering?
I would say it's all of those things as well. And to me, there's self-remembering and there's divided attention. So divided attention is just the efforts that I make. And so, yes, having a moment where I actually see myself screaming at the taxi driver or, being mean to my husband or whatever, like those are extraordinary moments of self-remembering. But another form of self-remembering I find that is more delicious, or like I can't say I would choose one over they're all kind of unified, but is to see again, to see the divine, to see who I actually am, to see timelessness, to see who I was before I came here and who I'll be thousands of years from now, and to see the energy space that is right above us. Right in fourth way work, it says that the heightened state is always right above us. And to me, self-remembering is jumping into that state. So while everyone is like in this cloud, I jump and I'm like, oh, there's like space above this cloud, and that's actually where I am. That's who I am. I'm not any of these things that I'm identified with. And I think it's also like that state right after you see the ugliness of yourself screaming at someone or being, whatever. Like I feel like there's this beauty, again, because it's like, okay, those are my mechanics, but that's not really who I am.
Right. I am called to skip to page 129 when we talk about the conscious suffering, necessary suffering, and unconscious suffering. You say that you're mentioning the passing of your baby, your first baby
Yeah.
girl. Now we have a second baby girl,
Yes, thank God.
thank God, who looks like Frida.
I love her. Oh my God. I'm obsessed with this baby.
That's my baby right
Thank
there.
you.
There are a few baby girls on the planet. Yours, Radha's, and Gabrielle Lyons, little girls. I want to
Oh my
eat them
God.
to get the three of them together because they're all roughly around the same
Yes.
age. That was the beginning of the end of your old life.
Yeah.
I mean, you had other shocks, obviously, but that tragedy really did set you on a new path. That was very major. In what ways can you describe the differences between conscious suffering, necessary suffering, and unnecessary suffering?
Yeah. So unnecessary suffering is like everything we do all day long, like shame, guilt, self pity. Oh my goodness. The list just goes on and on. And does that mean that it's not necessary? I don't think so. I think it's actually necessary, but we can actually be rid of it. And that says a lot, right? To say, okay, I understand that self pity is necessary by the way that it's part of my mechanics, but I don't actually have to live with this, you know, as part of my process forever. I can be free of it. Now, the way I've understood it as a man number 4, which is what we call in the work, someone who's tasted enlightenment and yet still has to taste hell over and over again, over and over and over again. Hello. And so as a man number 4 myself, like my journey has been one of dipping back into those states, right? And being like, how about some self-pity? And it's just like, oh, right. No, it's still not working. Okay, great. And returning back to bliss. Then there's necessary suffering, which in the work is described as, losing a child or losing a parent or having your house burned down or, having a terminal illness. Like those are necessary forms. And that's the universe's way of actually burning off your karma and like sculpting you into the David. And those we can't get rid of. And that's kind of something I found very beautiful too. Because like once you can be with, okay, well, this person's dead and that's actually not going to change. Or like rape, a lot of my clients have endured that and they'll be talking to me and I'm just like, this isn't an optional. You know what I mean? You can't go back in time and take this off the menu. Like you got that,
Yeah.
So that's necessary suffering. And that's gifted to us to like speed us through the process of becoming. And then conscious suffering is suffering we choose, right? So this becomes very similar to the shocks idea, except, it's similar to the shocks idea, but just like meditating for half an hour a day is a conscious form of suffering. And one might be like, wait, but it's so nice to meditate. It's like, is it really? Right? Because like most people don't want to do it. You know what I mean? So like, how great is it really? It's not like ice cream. It's like, you want to have ice cream? You want to meditate for half an hour?
Ice cream.
Both.
Both. The law of buffers. This is number 14. I like the way you describe this. You ask your clients, how much joy can you stand?
Yeah.
I don't even want to say it anymore. How much joy can you stand, listener? How do you teach the law of buffers to your people? This is such a good point in the fourth way work. And I don't think I understood it better than I did after reading your book.
Oh, I'm so excited about that. Buffers are delicious. Like we love buffers. We love them. We want buffers in our life because they prevent us from being fully alive and they prevent us from reaching our like delicious, like full deliciousness out in the open, right? So we're going to buffer them. So anything that you want in your life, and this kind of goes back to the law of 7, right? Or the law of success. It's like anything you want in your life is going to come with denying force. But some of that denying force is going to be caused by you.
Meaning anything great that you receive in your life, listener,
Yep.
you will find that it will come with some sort of opposing force.
Right.
Something that feels exactly the opposite. That's called the denying force, in case we don't get to that explicitly in this interview.
Yeah. And buffers are like, ways that we just don't want to see ourselves. And again, you said it so beautifully earlier when you were talking about like catching yourself when you're about to yell or something like that. And it's like, we just don't want to see ourselves again, because if we did, we would see that we're 50% like these like creatures. Creatures. And to truly love yourself, to truly show yourself to the world, to truly become is to no longer be hiding those parts of yourself. Because when you stop hiding them, they kind of stop being so destructive. When they're in plain view, like you just shine the light on them and it's like, oh, well, it's just ugliness. Like, and then it's not really that ugly anymore. It would be sort of similar to like one of those weird animals that lives in the dirt and like has 17 eyes and like 5,000 legs. And it's like, what is that? But you shine the light on it and you're like, oh, that's interesting. It's like, it stops being so scary.
I definitely have noticed that with regards to parenting. There are faces that I've made where I'm just like, who on earth? What is that? And I would go to the bathroom instantly, just say, hold on one second. And I would make the face I was just making in the conversation that I was having. And
wow.
See the creature. Yeah. That's one of the conscious shocks that I give to myself, because that face is unacceptable. Yes.
I love that.
We have to see how we buffer reality. We procrastinate to buffer the brevity of life. We are pretending we have all the time in the world. We feign apathy toward unrealized dreams.
Yeah, like I don't care if that happens. It's like, yeah, you do.
Bullshit. Yeah, you
Bullshit. Yeah,
do.
you do.
Yeah, you do. You care if that happens. Why would you put a buffer? Meditation, you say, meditation and asking. Meditation and asking. We're on page 76. Empowers you to embrace tenderness, break beyond buffers, and kiss the frog, entangling yourself with its messy sliminess. I turned to Jonah after an episode like that, and he has tears in his eyes, and I have tears in my eyes, and we're both sorry, both of us, for the things that we've done or said or whatever, or thought, whatever.
Mm.
Kissing the frog. We're just kissing the frog. We're getting it out in the open. We are apologizing profusely. We are reconnecting. We are dissolving whatever shame was in the way and recalibrating.
And what does the frog turn into when that happens, when you kiss the frog?
The frog turns into the really handsome prince who just wants to kiss his mom. So cute.
So cute.
Oh my God.
He's so beautiful. Oh my God.
He is. It's such a scandal. He's now almost, he'll be 14 this year.
He's going to be a heartbreaker.
It's true. He already is.
Oh, God.
Already is. Such a sweetie, though.
Yeah.
Very, very generous kid.
That's what I always remember him as, is whenever I see him, I'm just like, you are so sweet.
He's a sweetie. I wish I could just go through the whole damn book, but the book is called Don't Just Sit There. Can we just go to the 33rd and the 44th and then call it in?
Yeah, let's call it. What are we going to?
33, the law of death.
Mm-hmm.
This is all up in my space right now. I have people 28 years old, beautiful girl, dying in the next 2 days right now. Yep. I've got, oh my God, prayers up to Lucy. I've got death all around me. There's several friends who have friends who are dying. There are lots of young people, not people who live a full life. I want to understand what exactly you teach in your book when you say, okay, let's rise above this particular law. Let's get out from under it and get in front of it.
So I'm like a real Care Bear, just to be clear to all the listeners. Like I wrote that book and I don't, the way that I teach, like it's almost like people have said that it's like channeling. Like I have no idea what I wrote in that book, but I can answer the question now, and it's going to be different, and it always weaves back. Like that's when in that book was years and years and years of verifications, and that's why the book is centered around verification points. But I can speak to today. Like wow, death is so beautiful. Death isn't something that can be taken out of this particular mix. Like we came to this planet because we wanted death to be part of the mix. And I think we made certain agreements so that we could experience those things. And my mom, it seems like I've read a lot about you and your mom, and we've spoken about your mom. And I just feel like the mom relationship is so intense. And my mom died when I was 6,
Wow.
Like what is the karma of that? I was almost 7, and this beautiful woman who was like the center of our family just up and died of pancreatic cancer. And it completely changed my life. Like it took me like 30 years to identify as the woman, as the baby, as the soul that I was prior to that loss. To me, like after she died, it was like everything was like I was a motherless child. I was an orphan. I was, broken. I was heartbroken. I was all alone. All of these things became my identity because it broke my heart so much. And then later on, I realized like, no, actually, like who you were was already written. Like I came here a certain way.
Yeah.
And the agreement that I had with my mom that she was going to die, that was part of it, but it wasn't the whole picture. Like I already had the soul that was going to and was ready to withstand that death. And so I would say to like any listener, like whatever deaths you have endured, whatever deaths you're going to endure, whatever, and your own death, you just have to remember that it's laden with bliss. It isn't a punishment. It's laden with bliss. And wherever we came from is a place where bliss is everywhere. It's not like Earth where it's a little bit of bliss and then a bunch of bullshit.
Right, right. I want to read you the verification points so that
Yeah, please do.
relevant to the listener. And second of all, because I know exactly what it feels like to write something and then completely forget what was written.
That's me.
Ask what was said and be like, well, I don't know.
I don't know.
We're on page 162, the verification point for the law of death, number 33. In your journal, write your eulogy. The one you dream will be delivered at your funeral. If you've ever delivered one, you know the form and style. If you haven't, look up, Google eulogy speech for samples. This exercise is a powerful tool to get clear on the precious value of passing moments, hours, and days. It's like a compass rose you can use to determine the North Star of your life and see any misalignment between your dreams and your daily actions. Based on these gaps, here's the gold. You can then align what you do every day to your dreams, propelled by a new sense of urgency. This is very good. That's why I wanted to read it. As you write, play a piece of conscious music, perhaps something from the works of Hildegard von Bingen. Such a smart call, too. Once you've written the talk, have a loved one read it aloud or read it aloud yourself. Beautiful. It's a lot about buffers when anger comes up and sadness comes up, that, around death. It's you're aiming people toward back to the bliss and the pleasure of neutrality in this one, which I appreciated a great deal. 44, the law of crystallization. You thought I was going to talk about crystals, didn't you? Well, I'm not.
Not in this
When you
book.
crystallize a habit, a practice, or a belief, it melts into you so fully it's nearly impossible to shatter or alter. After thousands of hours of gratitude practice, for example, you can reach a takeoff point where a grateful mindset propels itself. It's actually difficult to leave this state because it's fossilized into your being. When you crystallize a new practice, it typically takes a major shock to lead you back into the waters of an old one. It's really well written. The crystallizing a desired state. Let's just jump off there.
Yes, it's so good. This is in this fourth way work called Creating a Deputy Steward. And what that means is we are made up of thousands of warring eyes. And in the work, it's called eyes, like the letter I. And basically it means identification points, which are all in contradiction. So I have a part of me that wants to work out, and then I have a part of me that wants to sleep in. I have a part of me that wants to eat carbs, and then I have a part of me that, doesn't. I have a part of me that wants to have sex with random people. I have a part of me that wants to be monogamous. These things are, forget about it. You know what I mean? Like, what are we even talking about? So if you live a life where you're being pulled along by all of those things, you're basically just a slave. And they are, in the fourth way work, also described as slaves. They're servants that have been left alone, basically. And they're kind of like, dude, I don't know, do whatever you want, And it's like, what happens when you leave a bunch of employees to do whatever they want? Nothing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Someone has to be there to be like, now we wake up, now we make the bed. So crystallizing is so beautiful, because once you've crystallized a certain way, it just... you see it in certain people. Like when you meet someone who's crystallized in certain aspects of their life, it's palpable. Like I remember meeting Maya Angelou when I was 17 years old, and I just, she did a bunch of things. She read me a poem and she did her spiel, but it was something about just being in her presence. I started to shake and cry. I was just so moved by this person who had clearly crystallized something. And so I do believe that when we allow ourselves to pursue these laws and to excavate them over and over and over again, which is really what the book is all about. It's all about returning to these laws over and over until you finally see that hideous face that we were talking about.
Right.
you can fall in love with who's hiding behind there. It's that whole Wizard of Oz thing, it's like you get in, it's like a dude behind. There's no, you thought it was this one thing, but it's like a little guy in a machine being like,
Yeah. And I think I have to go back to my own example for a second, but in those moments where Jonah's feeling threatened, or my identity is feeling threatened as the mother of a great kid, and he's getting in trouble or whatever's happening, I have to fall back in love with the little baby inside of myself and the one inside of him, the ones who
mm,
are operating on love only.
mm-hmm.
And immediately when I remember that, everything softens. Like all of the things that I think need to be happening, you need to behave like this, and he needs me to behave like this. It all kind of just like melts, and the two of us lock eyes, and his arms open really wide, and we both start crying.
Mm,
You know, it's so beautiful to go back underneath where the neutrality is, where the magnificence is.
mm. It's so good to go there.
May all parents crystallize this way before things get rowdy.
For sure.
That would be a really good result. I love this quote. I want to finish with it. It's we're back to 145 in views from the real world. Gurdjieff, straight up.
Nice.
The point is to reestablish what has been lost, not to acquire anything new. This is the purpose of development. For this, one must learn to discriminate between essence and personality and to separate them.
Mm-hmm.
When you have learned to do this, you will see what to change and how. Meantime, you have only one possibility: to study.
Mm.
I feel very lucky to be studying and on this path with you, Miss. I do.
Same. Very much so.
It's really fun to talk about this work that you've done. This is top of my pile right now for some time. I'm actually going to place it right now on Jonah's bed so that tonight when we do the required Italo Calvino short story,
Mm.
there's a compendium that we have been working with for like the past, I don't know, almost 9 years, I guess, and we read one a night.
Oh my God, I love him so much.
Oh, every story. And most of them are really uplifting, but some of them end off and we're just like, dang it, why? We make up our own endings. But tonight after Italo, I'm going into your book with him because I think it's actually the perfect medicine for, the moments, if you're a parent, you're listening to this, I think this will be useful. And then I'm going to stop talking. The moment when you have a kid who feels like they can't act better than they're acting because of a certain circumstantial reality.
Right.
Like, this is happening, mom. So how can you fucking expect me to do X, Y, and Z when this jerk is in my whatever space, or
Right.
this is happening in the classroom or the play, whatever?
And this is like, that's the parts where you're like, okay, you actually have to do it then too, right?
Right.
It's like, doesn't need to be comfortable.
Correct. And I don't think I've sufficiently explained this. I've tried, and I don't think I've sufficiently explained it. So I'm going to go over some of these laws tonight with him and walk him into what I understand and take for granted.
Hmm.
So thanks for that.
I tried to make it super simple. So like, and not
Sure.
because people are dumb, but because honestly, I just thought that it was time for some fourth way work to come out that wasn't so complicated in a secret language that you can't understand.
Yeah, there are lots of words in the fourth way books, lots and lots of words.
I break them down, and it's done for a reason. That's also meant as a conscious shock. And I lead a fourth way school for many years now, so like I'm in it. I get it why it's done. It's just a matter of there's also space for bits of it to come out into the open and infect people with freedom.
Right. Let me just repeat that: to infect people with freedom.
Yep.
So, Biet, your book, once again, is called Don't Just Sit There. And I would love for you to teach us where we can find you online.
I'm at Guided by Biet on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm bietsimkin.com or guidedbybiet.com on my website.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find the book on Amazon and, Barnes and Noble and any local bookstore if you like to support local. If you're in New York City, I like to go to McNally Jackson. It's there as well.
Love.
I just love local bookstores. Yeah, and I also have a new record coming out in June, so that's going to be cool.
Talk about this. One of my favorite songs on Spotify is one of your songs, dude. Interval.
Oh, thank you. That one's about death, right?
Gosh, it sure is. It's just so stunning. I listen to it pretty frequently.
Oh, thank you.
Mm.
So dark, that one.
It is and it isn't.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It is and it isn't.
Yeah.
It lands in my ears so often, especially when I'm flying on planes.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's part of a
Thank
couple
you.
different lists that I have. I forgot even to talk about your music. If you're listening to this, Biet is an incredible songstress and composer. My goodness.
Thanks.
So that's all on your website.
Yep. Yeah, they can find it there and on my Instagram and connect with me. And,
Okay.
I do all the things. I'm a weird little bird, but I've managed a way to put it all together in a way that fits.
That's why we like each other.
It's true. We're like
Weird birds unite.
we're weird, pretty birds.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it. All right, Miss. I love you so
I
much.
love
Thank you
you.
for being on with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
More soon.
More soon.